Houston. At present, Washington continues to debate the scope and ultimate price tag of President Joe Biden's ambitious agenda. And what gets passed will shape America's future, especially when it comes to energy. Here this morning to talk about that and more is U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. Madam Secretary, thank you for joining us.
You bet. Happy to be on.
So no matter what ends up making it to the president's desk, the goal here is to speed up the transition to clean energy sources. How quickly could we see that shift with the level of spending that's under discussion?
Well, with the level that's under discussion, we can meet the president's goal. And his goal is to get to 100% of clean electricity, clean, broadly defined, technology neutral, but zero carbon emissions, clean electricity by 2035. We want to reduce by half the amount of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And we want to get to a net zero emission economy, carbon emission economy by 2050. So those are all steps. I know it sounds to everyday people into the future, but honestly, just as one example for New Hampshire, I mean, he wants to see a big investment in offshore wind, 30 gigawatts he wants to add. Well, y'all are pretty well positioned to be able to contribute significantly to that. So, and that's much more rapidly. By 2030, you could see some offshore wind, towers, et cetera, going up. And of course, the supply to that being created in the United States. We want to be able to make the products that go into those turbines and put people to work.
We'll dig more into the offshore wind in a moment. I do want to ask, though, about with the agenda, we're seeing some pushback from some sectors of the energy industry, particularly when it comes to the proposed corporate tax increase. Is this change happening whether these companies want it or not, or is it important to have buy-in from the private sector?
Well, I mean, just remember, the corporate tax rate was 39% under the Obama administration, and it dropped dramatically under the Trump administration to point below which anybody was asking. And what the Biden administration is asking is to take it back to 26.5%. So still a major cut from just a few years ago. So there were, just as an example, 50 corporations last year that comprised about $40 billion in profits that paid nothing, zero in taxes. I don't think there's anybody here who's watching who thinks that's fair. All we want is for those who benefit enormously to pay a fair share. And we want them to remain competitive, obviously, globally, and that rate would do that. But we also want them to pay. And so the fact that the top 1% of earners, they paid significantly less than you paid, than people who are watching paid in terms of a percentage of their income. It's not right. So all we're asking is that we stop taking advantage, people stop taking advantage, corporations stop taking advantage of loopholes, that everybody pays into the system that they benefit from enormously. So one way or the other, that is going to be a component of how the bill gets passed.
Okay, back to the offshore wind. You were here a few weeks back on an appropriately windy day. It was nice and blustery to illustrate just how much capacity is here in New Hampshire. But, you know, people think of the New Hampshire coastline. I think it's the smallest state coastline of any of the 50 states, just about 18 miles total. But the capacity really is there for a significant amount to come in just right off New Hampshire coast.
Yeah, I mean, the Department of Energy just released an annual offshore wind market report, and New Hampshire alone, with the small coast, is estimated to have about 3.4 gigawatts. That's a huge amount for folks who are not following gigawatts, megawatts. It's a huge amount, 3.4 gigawatts of potential offshore wind power on the coast. And obviously the state has the capacity to serve as an important part of that whole offshore wind supply chain in the region. And the president wants 30 gigawatts total of offshore wind for the United States. So that is very exciting. And I'll say too that there is a real potential to add additional solar as well in New Hampshire. You've got the capacity to power a significant portion of New Hampshire, even though it's a northern state. But the advances in solar technology mean that you can actually derive a good amount of solar power even in northern states, even when it's not sunny.
What are some of the things that need to happen to get offshore wind up and running in New England? I can imagine it's not as easy as just running an extension cord to the beach and plugging into the grid.
Yes, you are right. First of all, we want to have an offshore wind backbone essentially along the Atlantic coast. That requires making sure that the lands that are in the sea, right, the offshore wind opportunities, which are under the control of the Department of Interior, that we give those permits out, that we allow for the private sector to do the installations. We have to make sure that the right technology exists for the right plot of offshore wind. So some places there's a deep fall off and you might instead use floating platforms for those big turbines. In some places it's much more of a slope, and that therefore you would use embedded turbines. And you could, because of the efficiency now of the turbines, you can put them much farther offshore so that they're not impeding fishing, or they're not impeding the a view of people who might have property along the shoreline. So all those issues have to be negotiated. But the bottom line is the capacity is there. This is happening all over the world, but particularly in Northern Europe, who we can learn from. A lot of those who actually build those huge turbines are willing, the companies are willing to come and locate in North America, along the eastern seaboard, to provide jobs for communities there. So both the technology of the turbine itself, the technology associated with connecting that turbine to the grid overall, and the advances in our regulatory opportunity to accelerate this are providing a great deal of encouragement to those who want to deploy offshore wind.
When we talk about energy and the New Hampshire coastline, we probably shouldn't forget the Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant, which is right there on the Mass border, essentially. It became operational, I think, about 30 years ago and was actually one of the last to do so in the United States. I'm curious, for your perspective, does nuclear power have a place and a role in the energy future when it comes to trying to reduce the dependency on fossil fuels?
Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. So nuclear right now in the United States provides about 52% of our clean electricity, our zero emissions electricity. If we got rid of those nuclear plants, we would have to install that much more zero carbon emission technology to make up for it. So nuclear, and we have the gold star regulatory system in the United States to ensure that nuclear is safe. And there are new nuclear technologies coming on board which show that you can have small modular reactors, micro reactors. They produce less waste. So nuclear technology of the existing fleets, the support of the existing fleets, and the technology associated with advanced nuclear is very much a part of, and will be a part of, America's clean energy future.
We talk about weaning ourselves off of fossil fuels. I want to ask you about electric vehicles. Those are obviously the future, but you governed Michigan for a decade, so you are totally familiar with sort of the American romance with the internal combustion engine, the fossil fuel burning cars and trucks. Should there always be a place on the American road for those fossil fuel burning vehicles, or is that going to have to become a thing of the past someday?
Well, it is moving to become a thing of the past. It's not going to be immediate, obviously. And for some very large trucks and, heavy duty semis, et cetera, those might take a little bit longer to electrify, if you will. But all you have to do is look at what the American auto industry did a few weeks ago in standing in the Rose Garden with the President of the United States, saying that 50% of the new car sales by 2030 in their fleets will be electric. And some are moving even faster than that. So it is going to be part of our future. But for those who like the torque, drive an electric vehicle. I'm telling you, you might love your internal combustion engine, but the electric vehicle has amazing torque. If you like the sound, a lot of the electric vehicle options, they're now attaching, believe it or not, sound that sounds like it's got torque. So there are lots of options for those who understandably have a romance with the traditional vehicle. The electric vehicle has an awful lot of advantages, though. Lots to love about it, including, and I drive an electric vehicle. I have a Chevy Bolt, and it drives, I plug it into the garage. I have solar panels on the garage, so I never have to go to a gas station. I drive on sunshine, and the fuel is basically free. So that is very exciting. I save a heck of a lot of money, and that's another reason to love the electric vehicle.
I'm sure there was a lot of American angst, too, 100 years ago, transitioning from horses and buggies to vehicles. But one more serious thing here. It's been about a month now since Hurricane Ida, and there are still parts of Louisiana that are without power. Is this going to be the new normal, or there are things that we can do to the grid that are going to ensure that we can endure these stronger storms that are becoming with more frequency in the future?
This is a great question. of course, this Hurricane Ida is one example of these accelerating extreme weather events that are attacking humans, but also the grid that delivers power. So it's not just in Hurricane Alley, it's also an explanation for why we're seeing so many droughts, wildfires in the West that are ends up sparking and creating more wildfires. We have got to invest in the grid. So we have to underground in places where we have that are particularly vulnerable, that can sustain undergrounded wires. This is one of the things in the bipartisan infrastructure deal that's very important. It allows us to invest in next generation grid technology to make sure that these grids are resilient, that we have the right amount of capacity to add the renewable energy that we want to add, and that they are safe from cyber attacks as well. Right now, our grids were built largely in the 1950s on wooden poles, the distributed energy system, with wires hanging from them that are terrible when it comes to being able to withstand an extreme weather event. So the nice part about what's being negotiated and what may end up on the president's desk is that there will be a significant investment in our nation's electric grid, long overdue.
All right, U.S. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm, thank you for joining us on Close Up today. We appreciate the time.
You bet. Thanks, Adam.